Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining. Those of you that could be here live and those that are going to watch later. But we're happy to join you. We're the team from Simon's Searchlight, and we wanted to give you a chance to ask some questions today. We've been really excited to work with the OCNDS community and everyone that's already joined the registry, and we want to make sure that everybody's just super clear on what it means to participate, what it is that you need to do, why it's important to do at this point, and what information you can get back that might help you in your daily life. So we're going to go around and do some introduce ourselves at least, and then we can get started with your questions. So I'm Jennifer Chernagle. I'm the project manager for Simon's Searchlight. Since we started back in 2010, you might have seen that we had our 10-year anniversary celebration recently. So we're super happy to have been with the community for this long, and we're planning on being around for a long time to come. So again, welcome to everyone, and I'll just go ahead. Misha, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Misha Kawanda. I am the Simon's Searchlight Outreach Manager. So I am really excited to touch base with everyone in the community and hear more about the questions that you guys have. And if there's any other questions, I can put my email in the chat as well as to follow up with me anytime.
Great. Leanne?
Hi, I'm Leanne Green-Snyder. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, and I work with Searchlight on our measures that we use to gather information from you, and then the care and keeping and sharing of the data for new discoveries.
Okay, and Curtis?
So my name is Curtis Weaver, and I'm one of the study coordinators on Simon's Searchlight. So if you guys have any questions and things that happen, they sort of go to our study coordinator inbox. So I might be one of the people that take care of those. And I'll put our coordinator email in the chat. So if you guys have any questions that are really specific, we can definitely help you out.
Great. And I'll just mention briefly, just to orient us for what Simon's Searchlight is. Simon's Searchlight is a research program, and our goal is really to accelerate the science in neurogenetic conditions that are associated with autism and neurodevelopmental disorders more broadly. We collect high quality natural history data as well as biospecimens, blood and saliva, with the goal of moving forward the scientific knowledge into these conditions. We really want to make sure that we're providing information back to participants, and we do this in a variety of ways. Currently, we can talk about that a little bit as we go through the questions. But most importantly, we also want to widely share all of this information with researchers around the world so that we can get the more researchers and brilliant minds we can get looking at your data and working with your biospecimens and thinking of new opportunities to even collect more information, the faster things will progress. So I think we're ready for some questions.
And just in case anyone doesn't know who I am, I'm Jennifer Sills, the founder and president of CSN K2A1 Foundation. And the foundation has been working with Simon's Searchlight for several years now, and we feel incredibly blessed because this is a goal that all rare disease foundations have, is to have a natural history study. And it costs hundreds of thousands of dollars in order to run. And so we feel incredibly blessed to have been chosen by Simon's Searchlight, that they are funding and running the natural history study. So thank you. Unfortunately, Dr. Chung wasn't able to be here today. And so maybe first you can talk about a little bit of her involvement in Simon's Searchlight and the natural history study.
Yeah, definitely. So Dr. Wendy Chung is the principal investigator for Simon's Searchlight, as well as several other large cohort studies that we run at the Simon's Foundation. So she really has expanded this in a meaningful way and really broadened the magnitude significantly over the past 10 years. So not only is she obviously very intimately involved with the OCNDS community, but the idea is to really expand this to many, many different neurodevelopmental disorders that are all associated with autism. However, the idea is that within each community, there's so much you can learn, but also if you bring the power across many different communities, there may be things that you're learning in another group that can inform progress in other genetic conditions as well. So it's really kind of harnessing the power of all of these organizations working together for a common goal, because as you said, it's one of the highest priorities for any rare disease organizations is to be able to collect all this data, and Wendy's really committed to accelerating this as quickly as possible.
And then you may have already said this, but just really kind of in simple terms, what is a natural history study and what's the data that you collect?
So yeah, so a natural history study is really a study that follows a group of people over time who have a specific medical condition, and it collects health information, behavioral information, et cetera, to try to understand how the medical condition develops, even early on, but also over time to really give insight into how these might be treated. So the natural history study, it's what you collect, but also making sure you're collecting it consistently over time to really get a good picture of the life cycle of what happens and to help people answer questions of what might be coming up.
How could information learned in a natural history study affect the care that individuals are receiving in the clinic when they go see a doctor? Because right now when they go, I would say most, if not all doctors and clinicians, including geneticists and neurologists, have never heard of OCNDS. And so how could this information learned in the natural history study affect the care that someone receives in the clinic?
Right. Yeah. I mean, so as you said, yeah, many doctors that you visit may never have treated someone with OCNDS, and and one of their first steps, probably in preparation for your appointment, is to go online and see what's already out there in the scientific literature to help inform them and give them a sense of some guidance about how to approach treatment and recommendations. So so knowing that they need this guide to decide what, even as they see someone in the clinic, what symptoms and challenges that they're seeing are actually related to OCNDS and which ones may not be, what's already known out there that might help that child or individual. It can also tell them what they might need to monitor and look for as the child gets older, how things might change or progress. So it really gives them a kind of a roadmap of how to think about treatment for these individuals. So the key portion of that is, what is it that, where does that information come from that they're looking up online? You know, the first step is really collecting that data and getting it published and out there in the literature, so it is readily accessible to clinicians, and then having that information build over time. So the importance really is gathering all the information in a single place, so that we can get these publications out to help clinicians make the best decisions.
And I think that brings up an important point, that some families have some reservations about their privacy. So if they are sharing this very personable, identifiable information, how is their protected and conserved?
Yeah, so privacy, we take privacy very seriously as well, and we make sure that all of our policies are kind of at the highest level of what's expected in human subjects research. So all of the research data that you enter in the records are stored, as far as the database, it's stored electronically in a secure, encrypted, password protected database. we do have a large, so this creates a large data resource for qualified researchers, but we don't just send it out to anyone, any researcher around the world. Before they can use the data, they need to apply, and their applications need to be reviewed and approved to make sure that they're also maintaining, the highest level of ethical responsibility, and that they have IRB approval or ethics board approval for what they're wanting to do with the data. And then importantly, before we share any of that information with these approved researchers, we take out all of your personally identifying information and we assign a code. So the coded data is what's shared with researchers. They don't have access to information that would readily personally identify you. So and again, we also, and we talked about publications earlier, we will never publish anything in the study on any forum that could readily identify you without your express permission.
And why is it then important? And I know Dr. Chung always talks about that it's important for you to represent yourself in research, and particularly in rare disease research, because it is rare. So why is it important for everyone to participate?
Yeah, that's a great question. One thing we recently did is posted a list of all the genetic variants for each of the conditions that are that we study in Simon's Searchlight, and we've put that on our safari.org website. It's sfari.org. But it helps researchers know what the different variations on each of those genes are that are included in the registry. And one thing that you can see when you look at that list is, although there are some individuals that have OCNDS that do have the same change on that gene as other individuals that are known, but for the vast majority, everybody has a very unique change on that gene. So that's why it's really important to represent yourself, because what we know is that the effects of these different genetic variants can be different. So you just want to make sure that when researchers have access to data about OCNDS, and data and biospecimens, that they have the opportunity to have their eyes on your specific genetic change, because it could yield some different findings potentially. So it's not only just wanting, and most importantly, obviously, to make sure that we increase the numbers of individuals that are participating in research specifically for these ultra rare conditions, but also making sure that you have the opportunity to make sure that researchers are looking at your particular situation and experience. I guess I'll add also, as far as, I did mention that we've been doing this for 10 years. We plan on being around, a really long time to come. But as far as why is it important to do this right now, knowing that everybody has very busy lives, as you said, everyone's triaging their lives and trying to balance. But for rare diseases, the message continues to be how important it is to get your community ready. So having this research toolkit that includes natural history data, cell lines, mouse models, identifying appropriate outcome measures, et cetera. So if you have those components ready, you'll be in a really good place to move forward as a community as quickly as you can when opportunities for therapeutics arise. So you're really, you're building the capacity for being able to move forward quickly in the future. So that's really the rationale behind the sense of urgency. We're going to be around for a long time, but it's at your benefit if you try to get the information in, soon, so that you're in a good place to move forward.
So once someone chooses to sign up, and they go online to register for an account, how many minutes does it take to register for an account?
Yeah, and I'll say, because right before this meeting, I actually went in and I registered in our test environment to make sure I was testing it out too, but I'll let Curtis chime in as well. So when I just did it a few minutes ago, it took me about 15 minutes to do the registration process, which means you put in your email, you answer some questions about yourself, the person that's entering, that's starting the account. And then you have the opportunity to add your child, if you have a child with the genetic condition. Read through our consent form to make sure that you understand what it is that the participation entails. And then you can get to the point to upload your genetics lab report. So that whole part of kind of setting up your family, making sure you understand and consenting and uploading your report took me about 15 minutes. So is that, Curtis, what you generally see?
Yeah, and I just did the same thing as you right before this call. I made a test account, and yeah, it takes about 15 minutes. It's pretty quick.
Yeah.
And for some of our families, we've found actually that they get a very minimal report or no report at all, a genetic report actually confirming the diagnosis. And so if someone gets there in the registration process and now they're kind of at a roadblock, what happens then? What happens if they can't find their genetic report or they were never given one? What do they do then?
Yeah, so we have the option when you get to that point, you can tell us, I have my genetic report, and it'll let you do the upload, or you can say, I don't have my genetic report. And if you don't have your genetic report, what you can sign is basically a medical release form that gives us permission to go to your provider on your behalf and ask them for that report. So we recently rolled out a digital version of this so that you don't actually have to sign a piece of paper and either fax or mail or, take a picture of it and send back. So you can just within the system, you can sign a digital medical release form. We'll go out and get the report on your behalf. And when we get it, we'll upload it in the system, and we'll also send it back to you so that you have it for your records going forward.
And when a person or a child, no longer really a child anymore, with OCNDS is over 18, what happens then as far as the parent involvement and then also the individual living with OCNDS if they're over 18, but let's say they're still living at home? How does that work with guardianship or powers of attorney? Where can someone look on the website for guidance on that?
Yeah, so there's two different scenarios. One is that you join initially, and the child is already over 18, so they're already a young adult, and they'll either, if they're an independent adult making their own medical decisions, they would then initiate the account themselves. And then they would have the opportunity to invite their parents. So adults that join with genetic conditions will be their own account holder, and they will invite their parents to participate. If the case is that the child is still dependent, either that the parent is an official legal guardian or the parent has power of attorney. I'm going to mess up that word, but or a legal authorized guardianship, they will be able to consent on their behalf. If it's an official guardian arrangement, they can go through. Sometimes with power of attorney, we might need to review the agreement because there's so many different laws in different states and potentially different countries that have different stipulations of what's allowed. So we have to review some of that with the family to ensure that they're okay to go forward. So I want to open that up because Leanne has been advising quite a bit on this. Did you have any other comments on that, Leanne, of some how we would make that determination?
No, not really. Not a lot to add.
Okay. The other scenario is if you join before your child turns 18, but during the course of your participation, your child becomes 18. So the system will know that change has occurred, and we will send you a notification where you can specify whether your child you are remaining a dependent. So you're taking legal guardianship or power of attorney. And then you will continue participation in the same way. If your child is going to basically remain a dependent, if they are now an independent adult, you have the opportunity to invite them to participate as a now independent adult, and they would get their own account and be able to continue participation. So we call that, the aging up process, that where there's some notification that happens in advance, just to let you know that this time point's coming up, there are going to be some changes, but you have the opportunity to let us know. And sometimes we recognize that maybe the determination isn't going to happen immediately on the 18th birthday, that you could be going through the process, it's not yet known. So we have the opportunity to then check back over time, so that to see if you would continue participation, whether that's 6 months later or a year later.
So after you've finished the registration process, then what happens? What's next?
Yeah, so actually, Curtis, do you want to describe what the process is after they upload their lab report?
Sure. So once we have your lab report, the next step is for our team of genetic counselors to sort of review it and just sort of collect the information and make sure that you are eligible. So there is a little bit of a lag period where you sort of upload your report, or maybe you don't have your report, so you ask us to go get it. And there is sort of, a little bit of time where there might not be a whole lot going on. But once things are reviewed and approved, which usually once we have it takes somewhere around a week or two, sometimes a little longer, depending on how many people are registering. Then you sort of are unlocked into the next step, and we'll send you an email to let you know that. So then the next major task for you to do is to schedule your medical history phone interview. And that usually takes about an hour to actually have the interview. So that's sort of like your core participation in Searchlight. But there's also a ton of other surveys that will be released or sort of launched on your account for you to complete when you have a chance. And those are sort of smaller than like maybe the medical history interview, but they're still really important to complete because they just help us collect more data. And I'm not sure, does anybody else have anything to add?
No, I mean, I think the only other thing I would say is that you also will you've indicated as part of registration whether you're interested in providing a blood or saliva sample. And so you'll have a survey launched on your dashboard, the blood draw interest survey. And so that'll kick off that process of, if you live in the United States, we have a network of labs that will send you a blood draw kit that you can then take to your local Quest center to get the blood drawn, and then it will automatically be a prepaid FedEx shipment back to our biorepository, and they'll start the processing of those samples.
What if, I guess, two parts. Why would it be beneficial for the family and then the community for someone to give blood and saliva samples? And what happens if you don't want to give blood and saliva samples?
Mm-hmm. So giving a biospecimen, either blood or saliva, is an optional part of the project. You are welcome to participate in Simon Searchlight, even if you aren't interested in giving a blood or saliva sample. The benefit of having those available is that we can then generate cell lines and DNA sources for researchers who are interested in looking in doing experiments specific to OCNDS. And it could be, in general, it could be for specific variants or mutations in that. So one thing I'll mention is we have many researchers that are excited about an effort we started last year to create induced pluripotent stem cells. So those are called Ipscs. And basically what they are is when the blood is sent to the biorepository, they're able to use certain components of the blood to create these Ipscs, which are in general a really early version of the cell before it starts to differentiate. So they can coax your cells back to an early state, and then they can use processes to make them into any type of cell with your genetic material. So they could say, we're going to create a muscle cell or a cardiac cell, or in our case, the most important ones that researchers want to look at are a brain cell or a neuron. So they can do all of this to create these iPSCs specific to OCNDS with particular variants when patients are giving these cell types. And they can do sorts of disease modeling. They can test different drugs on these specimens, like high throughput sequencing type model. But at the end of the day, it's a really critical tool in your toolkit, basically. There are researchers that really focus on that kind of research. And then there are other researchers that are really interested in the survey data that you and the medical history data that you have available. So I think combined, it just really provides a nice rounding of all of the potential information that's available to researchers to move forward. And again, it goes back to the idea of representing yourself in research too, because we will have researchers, and I'm sure in the future we will have industry partners that will come to us and say, do you happen to have cells, cell lines available for individuals with this particular variant or this group of variants, because we've discovered something and we want to test some things out. And so that's why it's really important to have them there for them so that we can say, yes, absolutely, we do. We have cells, we can send them to you. Please put in your order. So it just saves a lot of time to have them already available.
I will say, at least from the foundation side, it's exciting to know that we actually have 8 to 9 of these iPSC cells that Simons has developed that directly come from the patients. And so these patients are being represented in research. And I already know for a fact that we have researchers looking at specific mutations and have requested those cell lines to be sent to them. So we feel so blessed that that's already occurring. And we are moving forward and kind of getting our community ready, if that, as you were saying. But so everything that you're talking about is already happening, which is exciting and great. I do have a question for you that comes from our community, which is, so we've heard that that there, by participating, that maybe there's an Amazon gift card. How much is that for? What happens if the gift card's not available in your country? And then on top of that, how is the information presented back to the community? What do they receive? How do they kind of keep track of what's going on in the natural history study and what information is being given back to Simons?
Yeah, Leanne, I'm going to come back to you about the individual results reports and presentations and mini snapshots and everything. But to answer and I'm sorry, tell me the very first part of that question.
Actually, what I realized is that we kind of didn't finish up. So after you register, and the geneticist team or genetics team has kind of approved the registry, then you get an email back saying that you can now schedule your kind of medical history intake with the geneticist. The call is about an hour long, give or take.
For the medical history form, yes. So the baseline call, the call that we do the very first time, we want to make sure that we have a thorough understanding of medical history. So that takes about an hour on the phone with one of our genetic counselors. And then every year on or around the child's birthday, we'll check in with you again and have you set up something that's a shorter call, but it's just a check in to see if anything's changed. And because we want to make sure that we're updating your record in the database with the most up-to-date information. And yes, as far as the surveys that you fill out, not in a phone call style, but just on your own at your own pace and time. We do have gift cards both for the surveys as well as the phone interviews. And so those can, and because the number of surveys that you get assigned to your account will really depend on who in your family is signed up. how old they are, what, if it's an individual with the genetic change, or if it's maybe a sibling or a parent that doesn't have the genetic change. So there's different factors that dictate how many surveys show up in your account. But each survey ranges somewhere between a $5 and $10 gift card. And for some of the longer ones, for example, and when I say dollar, we're talking about US dollars, but we do have the ability to give gift cards in other to individuals in other countries through other Amazon mechanisms as well. So, but the longer, like the initial phone call with the genetic counselor is because it's longer, that's a 50 US dollars gift card. And then follow-ups are a bit less because they're shorter calls. So I would say and you could tell me your experience, Jennifer. I would say that, it's maybe between $100 and $200 in general in gift cards over time, and some, if you have more individuals in your family participating, it might be a little more. If you have fewer, it might be a little less, but we really want to make sure that we're recognizing the time it's taking families to spend to provide this really valuable information to us.
Thank you. And as far as the information gathered kind of during these surveys and also in the medical history interviews, how is the information gathered then given back to the community?
Yeah, well, Leanne, why don't you talk about that?
Yes, so we do return the results of our research back to participants in a couple of different ways. So the first is these customized, individualized reports that show the ranges in which a child's results or an individual's results fell on a standardized instrument. So we have different kinds of measures that we give, different kinds of surveys. Some are psychological questionnaires that measure behavioral problems or developmental levels. In fact, the interview that you would do on the telephone with the genetic counselor is a gold standard part of a developmental evaluation that's done clinically, typically, and that's called the Vineland. So we return a mini report back of those results and other results I think they're delivered as PDFs on your account, on your Searchlight account. And they show not only where your child or your dependent falls, but where they fall in relation to others in the group with your same genetic change. So that can be very interesting to see similarities or differences among members of the group. And the second way that we share information back, and this is a bigger team effort with Misha, Lindsay, Jennifer, we will put out snapshots to families showing statistics on medical conditions, developmental diagnoses based on our interview data, and show them for the whole group. And we will call these aggregate data. So it's just everybody put together, and it gives you a picture of what the group looks like. And we're hoping to build these out in the future. We want to be able to return back more information so that families could keep track of their, basically a record of the medical conditions they've reported in one place in a neat summary. So we've been hoping to do that. And as we add more measures, we really want to expand the battery to really capture the broad range of functioning in individuals. And so we will have more surveys coming on board and more reports of those surveys. Anything else you'd add to that, Jennifer or Misha?
I was just going to take a second to screen share an example of the report. Hold on. So the first report you were talking about Leanne, where it's able to take information from the Vineland, for example, and then we create the summary just to give a quick idea of what this actually looks like. So what you're looking at right here is an example of the summary of where the feedback about what Leanne was saying, where your child is comparatively to the others within your group. And so right now we're doing that for these 4 surveys.
These kinds of ranges, average, below average, those are coming from the particular psychological measure, how they measure this, how they categorize it. So it's consistent with clinically what you might see. And of course, because we're doing this long distance and we can't see you in person and do a full real clinical evaluation, it's not a clinical eval really. I wish I could see everyone in person. That's how I would do it. But because we're far away, we give back a responsible amount of information that then you could take back to talk with your providers.
And I'll also add that over time, I'm sure that some of you have tuned into virtual presentations. So we'll, whenever you have an in-person family gathering or a conference or a virtual one, Dr. Chung has been able to do more in-depth summary presentation of what we're seeing in the registry as well. So I think we will be having one of those as part of the summer meeting that will be announced soon.
The other thing that I could show is an example of the quarterly report. It's still in its draft phases, but I could show an example of that if everyone thinks that's okay.
Sure, you could, if you have it available, we could show it real quick.
Sure. So here is an example of a quarterly report that our team has been working on that will be updated and posted to our gene page. So for the CSN K2A1 page on the simonsearchlight.org website, we would have a summary of what's in the registry. So this wouldn't be pulling all this information from the literature, but what really is represented within Simon Searchlight. So based on individuals' ages, registration progress, and then high-level summary data. So this is not real information. This is example data. This isn't actually from a genetic group, but it would give high-level summaries and every 4 months posted so that you'd have a better idea of what was within Simon Searchlight.
Yeah, and we're really looking forward to getting feedback from the community as well. So we've got our version 1.0 that we're going to be putting out nearer to the end of this month, but also looking for feedback from everyone. So I know that you had some, there were some questions that had come in, Jennifer, from the community, just to get a sense for what kinds of specific questions could be answered through a natural history study. And in general, you know, we can use information collected as part of a natural history study, and experts and clinicians can, through that information, better understand the challenges of people with OCNDS. And based on that, can make recommendations on appropriate interventions based on what those interventions are known to target. For example, if there are particular language diagnoses that are coming up more frequently, there are existing interventions that can target those particular individuals with those particular diagnoses to help. And so I think knowing more about that can help hone in on what therapies might be most applicable, for example. But I wanted to give Leanne a chance to say a little bit about more, because I know some of the questions were specific to to interventions in schools and that kind of thing, school services.
Yeah, maybe I can ask, sorry. Maybe I can just repeat some of the questions.
Sure.
For those listening, they might be thinking the exact same thing. So I know that we have a lot of parents in the community that would like to know the average age an individual with OCNDS can toilet independently. What's the average age they start to speak, walk, or eat on their own? If there are sleeping problems within the community of people who have OCNDS, difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep all night. If there are recommendations to help with communication for those individuals who are nonverbal, and then also really, I think for all the young families that are diagnosed, what should early intervention look like in a child with OCNDS? And what are the recommendations for preparing an OCNDS child for school? What types of schools have been successful? Sorry, this is kind of a list of questions, but these are ones that frequently kind of come up in our community that people are hoping to get answers to.
So these are the kinds of things that this kind of information is exactly what over time we hope to clarify with a longitudinal natural history type of study. So this is all exactly the kinds of information we collect. I will say there are a couple of pieces I will highlight specifically there. So for example, what to expect in terms of developmental milestones. That was the first thing that you listed about toileting and speaking. We do collect that, and the next time that we produce a talk, so Jennifer was mentioning how Wendy, Dr. Chung will do presentations and present the data. We often will include that information. It may take more time just over the next couple of years to get a fuller picture of that, because, for example, a lot of families may report that, well, my child's not quite doing that yet, we're working on it, right? So we don't know the final answer until we have a little bit more time to be able to say, oh yes, okay, now after we've watched this, because we keep coming back, we need folks to update. In fact, I'm going to put in a plug. We have a little mini survey that we've pushed out that is that may be on your account now, that asks if your child wasn't walking or talking before, are they now? So we are trying to keep getting those updates so we can get a more complete picture of when children do these things. And then when we present the information back to you, we'll often report that. And we can include that type of information in longer reports or snapshots that we do. So we'd like to work on that. For some of the other questions, the other one that I want to highlight that stands out to me is about early intervention and about education and about school programs. All of those questions, these are the kinds of questions, and when we've had in-person meetings with groups, these are the kinds of questions that I like to say are really individualized to the child. So I can see from looking at all of you in Searchlight and looking at your developmental data right now that there's quite a bit of variability in just looking at expressive language, for example. And so the most important thing is that aside from the knowledge of a genetic diagnosis, that we continue to individualize an approach for each child. It's extremely important. I can't emphasize that enough. I also want to emphasize is that in advance of the time it may take for us to collect information from more of you over the years, we want to be able to guide you now to say, go ahead and get the fullest package of early intervention that you can get from your county, or if your child's preschool age, from your school district. And that will start with the screening. It'll move to an evaluation. So when you contact, I'm sure you've all been down this road. You contact the agencies involved, do an evaluation. Do not hesitate to get started with that, because that needs to come sooner than some of the answers that I may be able to give you from this information that's going to take a little bit more time, right? And so my answer to parents is always go for the fullest package that they will give you. And in terms of communication, if the spoken word is not what is working currently, you don't want to give up on trying to stimulate that, but you do want to find other alternatives for communication. So AAC can range anything from using objects to exchange for a child or an individual to communicate their wants and needs, to picture exchange, to more advanced devices, and individuals can move up in their use of these kinds of devices. So again, this brings us back around to the first point, which is it can be very individualized. And so you're going to want, first step, to have a good evaluation by a speech language pathologist. I hope in the future to be able to talk to you more, or for Dr. Chung to be able to speak with you more about how some of our findings are relating to or informing some of these kinds of recommendations, so we could provide more information in the future. I hope that's a good start anyway.
That's such great advice. Thank you. Because I will tell you, it comes up all the time. And so thank you for saying that. A few other things that come up as well are kind of what types of seizures present in OCNDS, what type of management, are there management recommendations for them? How common is autism or autism traits in OCNDS? I just want to make sure people are feeling heard, that these are, how old is the oldest person living that we know of with OCNDS, the youngest? These are questions that we frequently receive and parents have.
Keep sending the questions, because we will try to, incorporate the most frequent questions, I think, into our reports that we can give, and when Dr. Chung or her colleagues will do talks. I think, Misha, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the questions about types of seizures and the occurrence of autism, those are included in the snapshots that will be going out to families, we're hoping, on a quarterly basis. Some of the other questions, I think, like I said, I think that I need to defer to Misha and Jennifer about, especially post-pandemic, what our plans are, or I guess in the meanwhile, what are our plans for presentations that Dr. Chung or others might give, because I'm not on top of that. So I have to defer on that one. But some of these specific questions, like the oldest known person, that's definitely a Wendy Chung question. And so I hope that we just have the platform where she can help with that.
Yeah, these questions are really helpful for us to hear now, especially because we can definitely address these as we prepare for a summer presentation.
Great. So we have families all over the world. OCNDS is not just limited to one region. And our families are really eager to participate, and not all of them speak English. And so all of them are very eager to hear sort of the timeline for kind of the supported language rollout. But also, if their language is not supported, what are the other kind of, is there any other way for them to be able to participate? If they had a translator help them fill out the paperwork and then do the intake, could they do that? Would the translator need to be a medical translator, or could it be a non-medical translator? Does it affect the integrity of the information gathered? So again, timeline for rollout, and then if their language isn't supported and they are super eager, is there a way with a translator that would be provided by the foundation? Would they be able to participate?
So, so yes, great point. We currently support participation in English and in Spanish. And we have recently overcome a fairly significant hurdle just from a tech platform to get rollout of additional languages unblocked at this point. So we are, our goal is to get, we've had everything ready to go and set for French, Italian, and Dutch as well for quite a while. But now that we've sort of taken, we've removed a roadblock, and we're very happy about it. But our goal is to roll those out sequentially throughout this year. So the next language that we're going to be rolling out will be French. As far as timeline, I need to defer to our informatics group, but I would say within the next several months, we will have that rolled out as we wrap up the last bits of Spanish that we needed to address. That being said, we have several other languages that are in the wings after that. But we hope that the way we're adding languages is when there are larger groups of individuals that we know of that would need to have that language available to participate, then we can prioritize to put it on our list. One way, and Curtis, you can let me know if this is correct. So if, for example, someone spoke a language that we did not currently support, when you go on to sign up on that very first page, I think that there's a drop down that says which language, what your language preference is. Is there on that a choice for other? I can't remember.
Yeah, I'm not
okay.
entirely sure off the top of my head, but there might be, and that would be a way that it would be in our system and we'd be able to see,
right,
what language it is.
Yes. So so there have been individuals that have gotten to that point before, and we kind of have a list of individuals who want to participate, but they're not currently speaking a language that we support. I will describe a little bit about so I said that this is an official human subjects research study that's governed by an ethics board that reviews all of our recruitment materials, our platform, what we're asking, what we're collecting, our consent forms, that sort of thing. And so the requirement from our ethics board is that we're only able to collect information when it's set up within the system. So most importantly, obviously, is that it's a consent form that the participant can read directly in their language and isn't going through a medical translator subsequent to that. So that is a requirement of our ethics board. And it also helps to ensure the consistency and the integrity of the data, to make sure that everybody's reading the same question and it's being presented to them in the same way in their own language. That'll help the data going forward. I will say that as we're planning for summer conferences, we've been able to identify a technology platform that will allow for direct captioning of the information. So for example, if someone speaks a language that we don't support in terms of data collection, we are making strides to try to be able to present information back to the community through annual conferences where someone has freedom to select even other languages so they can watch the presentation and see captions in their own language. So, so we hope to be able to move forward with this more in the future, but we're excited that we're going to be able to expand this year into other languages. But yeah, does that answer the question about you were asking about a particular translator on the other, the ability on the other end? And it's really yeah.
I mean, I can think of a family who speaks Arabic off the bat who is so eager to participate. And I think they actually were able to sign up enough that they have loaded their genetic report. But I was wondering, for the information that's getting back to the community. So for example, their language isn't supported, but they still would love to participate once their language is supported. Are they getting the kind of quarterly updates about with like the PDF that shows the information in there? I know it might be difficult because it's probably in English, but they may be able to use like a Google Translate to translate it. But are they still receiving that documentation, or no? The foundation would end up sharing with them kind of as an email blast to our community.
Misha, do you want to mention how your team has put together just the web pages in sections that could be then translatable through web translation services? I think that might be relevant.
Yeah, so so the issue with the snapshot, which I hadn't considered until what you're bringing up now, is what we do with our website is we put all the text in. So the text, when it's put onto our website and it's filled, it's populated there, then it's translatable with our plugin in our website. So you can translate all the information we've put in directly with whatever language you would like. With these quarterly snapshots, at least currently, we have them uploaded as PDFs. So currently the PDFs would not be translatable because they're like an image. So moving forward, that is something that we could see if we could tackle, but yeah, the website itself and any information we're putting there is translatable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but that's a good point. And I think that's a good suggestion for us as we think about putting out the reports in the future.
I just wanted to jump back into a previous point. So when you are asked about your language during the registration, it will ask if you can speak English fluently. And if you can't, it'll ask you if you can speak one of the other languages that we'll soon be adding. And if you can also say that you don't speak fluently any of those languages. And in that case, there is a free text box that opens up and you can put specifically what language that is. And that would be really important because that would be how we could, figure out what are the languages that aren't listed that we have a lot of people that we should, consider maybe adding in the future.
So I guess this is maybe a great time to mention that if our families out there aren't following Simon Searchlight on Facebook, that they should follow you, even though we do share your content, but it would be good for them to follow you, plus also the page associated with the gene CSNK2A1, and together bookmark at the top of their internet search, kind of Simon Searchlight CSNK2A1 page, so they can be most up to date on the information that's being collected in the natural history setting. So maybe we'll, at the end of the video, we can do some snapshots of what those links are.
I will mention, and I know that we're a little after 1. I see that Dr. Okur is here as well. But however, I will mention, I'm going to put in the chat as well. If anyone has any questions about where they are in the process or confusion with any of the registration, we have a wonderful group of research coordinators and project managers associated with the study that is ready and willing to answer all your questions. So I'm going to put their email address in the chat so that you can reach out for help in that way too.
And also, if anyone has any questions now that's on the call that haven't been answered, you can type them in the chat or you can unmute yourself and ask them now.
Hi, Jennifer. I've got a couple of questions.
Great, hi.
Hi, sorry, I've been hiding because we've got a lot going on here. It's quite busy in the house. So really quickly then, I've never seen my individual results report. Whenever I go to my dashboard, it just says that I'm up to date with all of my surveys and I don't know where to find it. So it's probably user error. But that was my first question. How do I find it?
Yeah, so they, I don't think I have a screenshot of what the dashboard looks like, but there is a section on your dashboard that's called Documents, I believe. It's like the lower right-hand corner of the page, and any documents that we've uploaded to your account exist there. So the first ones you will see pop up are your consent forms. So after you consent, you can see there's a PDF that's populated in there. But as new reports are generated, they will also just be added to that list of your documents there. So if you go to your dashboard and you're not seeing that, please email the coordinator at simonsearchlight.org email I put in there, and then maybe we can see if might be something we need to flip on our side. But yeah, the coordinators can go on and see what you're seeing and help you out.
Okay, thank you. I'll have a look. Do you collect samples from siblings? And if so, why do you need those?
We do, and again, the samples are an optional part of the study. We do collect samples on siblings, and there are cases where it's useful for researchers to have a familial, a control subject in the family. The most important individuals to collect samples for currently are the individual with the genetic change and parents. I think especially for the Ipsc cells that I mentioned, the parents, that grouping of individuals is the most important for those types of cells. But yes, there are research questions that can be asked about siblings, not only the data, but also the biospecimens. But again, it's the top priority are the individuals with the mutation and their parents.
Okay, thank you. And then my last thing was, nobody has ever discussed autism as a major symptom of OCNDS with us. We raised it with our doctor and asked to be referred for a diagnosis, but if we hadn't pushed it, it wouldn't have happened. And I don't know if the community really see autism as one of the major problems with OCNDS. And I wonder if that might be one of the things that we need to do, raise awareness of it, because I wonder if when people look at Simon's, they think, oh, well, this is all about autism. And I don't think that my child is autistic, because I've seen that on the Facebook page. Some of the parents say, my child isn't autistic. And I wonder if that's something that we might need to address.
Yeah, and I think sometimes the corollary is true as well, is that so it could be there and people aren't being referred for a diagnosis, but also I think maybe a family their child really doesn't have an autism diagnosis, and we need to make sure we're kind of making it clear to everyone that we study, that we're not limiting only to individuals with a genetic diagnosis. I think we actually just had a Facebook post recently that, and I don't remember the exact number, it was those 30-ish% of the Simon's Searchlight individuals in Simon's Searchlight with a genetic condition have a diagnosis of autism. But Leanne, do you have any comment about just the awareness in these genetic conditions and whether or not they're being referred for?
It's so tricky. I feel like I could talk all day about this topic. It's so tricky. I think that I think autism I'm seeing is under-recognized, and traits of autism are under-recognized in children with associated genetic diagnoses. I do think that that happens. I think I'm seeing in our data right now that that for this group, that your rate of formally diagnosed autism is about 20%, or sorry, 25%. It is very difficult for providers to make this diagnosis in the context of when there are a lot of other challenges going on. It's hard to disentangle, and that's part of why we may not be seeing the diagnosis more. It's just difficult. I think that no matter what, regardless of whether there's a formal label, behaviorists will tell you they treat what they see. So even without the formal label, if it's recognized that there is a trait there, like a repetitive behavior that interferes with getting anything else done in life, then you're going to treat what you see. That may not help. There's long conversations we could have about getting that treatment covered under particular diagnostic codes. That's a whole other problem. But regardless, I think, yes, have it looked at. You're going to need to have it looked at by someone who knows ASD really well and knows it in the context of other challenges like intellectual disability, language delay, and associated genetic diagnoses. Those professionals are not easy or common to find, but they are out there, typically at major universities that focus on genetics. And you probably want, I'm biased, but you probably want a psychologist that's seen a little bit of all of those conditions to be able to figure it out. I hope that helps a little.
Thank you. I think we might have some work to do with the community just to generally raise the awareness that autism is probably something that is a symptom that should be highlighted, that is probably under discussed, maybe.
While also respecting, like Jennifer said, that it's not going to be 100%. It won't be 100% of kids. And, you know, we're interested in seeing the whole full range of expression of the behaviors.
Can I quickly ask Dr. Okur why you believe it's important for everyone to participate in the natural history study?
I mean, I completely agree with Ms. Jarnagel, like Jennifer, yeah, like what she said, that for us to understand what are the real problems in these kids, and then also laying the groundwork for the future treatment possibilities and opportunities. So yeah, I mean, and we also talked this before in our not one-on-one, in our meetings with me and with the community, that yeah, I completely agree what she said.
Does anyone else have any other questions for us? It's been a great set of questions. And to be honest, when we hear all of your questions, it really helps inform how we think about moving forward too, and what we can do and change how we do it to be as helpful to you as we can. Okay.
It may be nice just right at the end, if we do have a few parents on, if they just wanted to describe briefly their experience with participating. That might be really helpful for some out there that are nervous about participating, or haven't had the time yet to participate, or wanted to know more information. since a lot of people are on the Facebook group, you can encourage them to Facebook you. I mean, I could start just because I am also a parent of a child with OCNDS, and I think within the first month of finding out, we signed up for Simon's Searchlight, and I was surprised at how easy the process was and how you worked within my schedule, because right, I am triaging our lives and picking up many broken pieces of glass or other things that my sweet Jules likes to break. But you worked within my schedule and you made me feel really comfortable about sharing my information. And I appreciate your new platform with kind of the dashboard to figure out what still needs to be done. And of course, we're always buying supplies from Amazon. So whether it's sensory toys or new manipulatives for school, we really appreciated the gift cards. So that's just that's my experience.
I can also say that we've had a very, very easy, accommodating, just like you said, Jennifer. I feel like when I go on there, everything just is so smooth and well thought out for the families participating. Everything is really spelled out. I don't know, it was very, very easy to do. And that's something we're not used to in the special needs world, you know, things just being kind of easy. So it was actually a nice surprise. It was a nice treat to be able to have everything set up. And again, just like you said, Jennifer, very accommodating to our schedules, easy to read, easy to follow. And it didn't take me very long either. So that was like just a nice bonus too. But again, something I'm very happy that I got myself into and my family into, and something I can't wait to continue to do. And that dashboard is just incredible. So thank you guys. You guys have obviously put a lot of hard work, thought, and everything into it for the families, and it definitely shows.
Great, that's great to hear.
Hi, and I'd also like to echo what Jennifer and Melanie just said as well. My family has found it super easy and works with my schedule, and you know, this isn't the hook for me, but it's also nice getting the gift card in the end. I actually just bought a toileting book from Amazon because that's an issue that we're struggling with my daughter with OCNDS. But it's pretty straight. Once you get registered, it's very straightforward. It's easy. And as already been said, very accommodating with families' busy schedules.
Also, if I could add one more thing, the reminders that we receive too via email and the phone calls to set things up, that's extremely helpful. You know, because again, everyone has a very busy life. You forget sometimes about those, I shouldn't say little things, but it's super important. But we get a lot of reminders to fill out a survey or fill out our stuff online. And that's really nice too, all the reminders.
Great, and we're trying to think through different ways to be even more specific with some of the reminders as well for some of the key tasks. So I know what we've been focusing in the month of February and March about getting your lab report in for individuals that might have gotten stuck at that point, or they just knew they had it and they needed to go back into their file cabinets and find it. But so the email reminder we have now is specific to, we're missing your genetic lab report. So we're trying new ways to be more specific as well. So.
And when do you expect kind of that PDF? I'm really excited about the one that Misa showed, kind of of the averages within the community and the seizures that we're seeing. When do we expect that to roll out on the Simons website? I think that's going to be an amazing tool for our families who have all these questions. You know, where does my child fall? What's the picture of OCNDS that we know of now, because so little is known about it?
Yeah, so we're aiming to do it quarterly. So the goal is to get something out at the end of this month, or probably probably the end of this month, but might be the beginning of April. But then to do it every 3 months after that. And so the team has done quite a bit of work just setting up a structure that allows sort of some of these numbers to be generated a little bit more automatically. So it's not as manual of an effort to try to really get this out more frequently to all the groups. So we're really excited about it.
And Dr. Okur, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, because I think the takeaway that I have from this, as far as participation in Simons Searchlight, there's so many reasons why to participate, but I think what you said, saying laying the groundwork for treatment, and that's what we're all looking for more information for when someone goes to a doctor and is diagnosed, that they're not, you know, fumbling through their papers, not knowing what OCNDS is, but then also that there is a treatment plan in place for the future. So thank you for mentioning that, because I think in the end, that's what Simons is helping us do. It's getting our community ready for treatment. It's getting it ready to apply science techniques in the future that could make a meaningful change in all of our families' lives. So thank you so much.
Yeah, sure. And like, as you know, like this is like one of my selling point when pushing you families to form these foundations. Yes, we're not going to be able to find an answer in the immediate future, but we need to be ready when the time comes.
Yeah, I always say the time is now. Science is catching up, and we want to be in a good place to be able to take advantage of all the advancements for our community.
Agreed.
Is there anyone else that has questions for us too? Otherwise, this was hopefully it was very helpful for you in the community, but also I want to reiterate how important it is and helpful for us to hear directly from you about your experiences and what questions you have, because it really helps guide what we do. Okay.
Hopefully this is the first of many continued discussions, since this is a long-term study where you're continuing to enroll people every day and as new people are diagnosed. So this isn't kind of a one-time discussion, where we are always in communication, meaning the foundation and Simons Searchlight, and our families are always in communication. So we will hopefully be doing more of these, whether it's information about what's Simons Searchlight or just more direct questions that families are having more and more as they're participating more and more.
Great. Well, thanks so much for giving us the opportunity to talk to your community today, and all of you. We're always happy to be here, and look forward to future conversations as well. Great. Well, everyone enjoy the rest of your day, and we can share the video from this back with you, Jennifer, so that you can post it where it's most helpful, and let us know if there are any questions that come up afterwards that people didn't have a chance to ask or didn't think about until after we hang up.
Sounds good. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay. All right.
Thank you, Dr.
everybody,
for taking your time to join us today as well.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.